Well, the meta has really solidified, and even though the upcoming changes are going to change the gameplay unless they change the champions and the items themselves, this tier list should last a while. I haven't been less conflicted about the items in a while now. Feels good, man. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another ProGuides CFT video. Today we're going to be giving you the items tier list for patch 10.23, as the meta has largely settled and it has affected the items quite a bit, at least compared to our previous tier list. The last couple of patches have barely touched items, which means that we might be due for some changes to freshen it up, so use this week of knowing what's best to your advantage and then go climb. As per usual, we did not include the spatula items as they are extremely volatile, and even the harder to use ones like Divine can be S tier in the right circumstances, except Force of Nature, of course. That item is always S tier. Before we dive right on in, I just want to let you guys know that we have a Discord community and a new subreddit that is growing really fast. We have you to thank for that, and we really want to continue building our community and helping you be a part of it. Make sure you check the link in the description down below. See you all there. And for our question of the day, we want to know, do you make GA in every match you play? If not, why? S tier. Our S tier includes items that are 99% slammable early game and can fit multiple comps, making them the perfect ace in the hole for the user. As such, our first item right out of the gates is Guardian Angel. The fall of Quicksilver as the absolute overlord has made this the best defensive item that there is. The fact that it is best in slot on Talon, Yasuo, Jhin, great on Ashe and Riven, decent on Diana, and generally good on anything else might mean that you want to use it, and that easily puts it in the top of the S tier. At the same time, it's a great counter to Talon, the menace of the patch, as it gives the poor one-shot unit a second chance and interrupts the Talon resets. There have been a lot of talks that GA is going to be taken out in set 4.5, as it has begun limiting design space quite a lot, so use it while you can. Next up is a ZZ Portal. Geez, I never thought I'd say these words, but here we are. The changes made to the little ZZ have made it an extremely useful and versatile item. Generally, when units are taunted in TFT, it's not like they will switch targets after the 1 second duration. ZZ provides a way of controlling the battlefield outside of the obvious position is there, which is huge. It can work as both a defensive or offensive option, limiting Talon or other assassins, just kidding, what other assassins, making Sejuani ult faster, making Lysandra and Diana comps do more than just use your spell once, and so much more. Overall, an excellent change to the item and one of the best early slams that you can make. Following up is Infinity Edge. The item is extremely versatile, good on as many units as GA, almost. Once again, a really good early slam, providing good damage while maintaining a good item for your future Ashe Hunter chosen. One can hope, huh? Hand of Justice makes a return to the S tier. Been a while, but as one of Talon's go-to items, of course it's up there. It's also really good on Yasuo, Yone, decent on Ashe, and overall a really strong early game item that almost every unit can use. The only consideration is using the glove for HOJ instead of possibly greeting for an IE or a Quicksilver if the carry you have demands it. Can't be S tier without Morelo. Another super versatile item, and since there is quite a bit of healing running around with all those Hands of Justice and Yasuo plus Yones, it's best that you have one of those books. Unlike League, Morelo is pretty efficient, and you can fit it in most comps. For example, Morgana is an amazing user of it in Talon, Sejuani can use it as well, Lux is decent with it, and Lysandra is excellent with the book in her hands too. Overall, it's not the primary carries that use it as much as the secondary, but just as important ones. FON is here, of course, as a spatula item that is too good to be true sometimes. It's fairly worth greeting for it if you get a spatula drop, since it's always a good option, and with the chosen mechanic, the traits that you can fit in with the FON can make you quite dizzy. Let's face it, Force of Nature will always be here in the S tier. We just keep mentioning it to keep you guys from not building it. That concludes our S tier. We have fewer items than usual, and that's because the ones that we already mentioned are already a class above the rest. Let's go ahead and see what those classes are in the A tier. The first one is kind of 2 items. Same as last time, Bramble Vest and Dragon's Claw are really good right now. Shy of S tier because of the relative lack in versatility and impact compared to the ones that we just saw. Diana and Riven are the most usual suspects for these items, using them extremely well, with Riven actually loving to equip them both, making her immune to damage. That's always really fun. Bramble is fairly strong against Infinity Edge as well, making the Talon get stuck on a tank with Bramble quite often, which can give you some time to take that little jumper down. Wow, Talon jumps around more than I ever jump to conclusions. Anyway, cloak value has gone down quite a bit, so it's a fairly easy decision making Dragonclaw. But Bramble needs 2 chain vests, which you can make GA. You can delay making Bramble if you like, unless you are playing with Diana carry, in which case it's her best in slot. Giant Slayer went down a grade as it remains quite strong, but the meta has moved slightly away from it, focusing on Infinity Edge Last Whisper combo once more. It still remains a strong item, especially into Diana, who has tons of health, and any other 3-star for that matter, as well as Gallia. Non-cultists have been making a bit of a comeback, so we might see GS rise in value in the next couple of days. Thieves Glove is always a solid A item, but there is a caveat that can actually potentially send it to the C tier. It is made out of 2 gloves. Gloves are extremely important right now, making the holy trinity of Quicksilver, IE, and Last Whisper. Thief's Glove is always one of those last resort items if you can get 2 gloves or 1 extra glove from Raptors, as getting the full item late game can pay off but also be risky. In those cases, it is absolutely an A tier item. Just don't slam it, ever. Zeke's Herald is up here, so yay! Poor Zeke has been climbing for so long, and they finally made it. The item does require some awkward combinations, namely Build and BF Sword, but it can be extremely high in value in Ashe, Talon, and even in Diana comps. It's also good on most units, especially supports that want some extra attack speed for that mana regeneration, like Yuumi. Last Whisper is up here of course, as we mentioned it a few times in conjunction with IE already. The combo is extremely deadly, especially on Talon, Ashe, and Jhin, but it can also function fairly well independently, together with Giant Slayer for example. Ashe attacks so many times that one of them critting is almost guaranteed after all. Quicksilver didn't fall too far. Its nerf and subsequent slow decline in use has dropped it from the S tier, but it's still a really good item on secondary carries as well as bruisery ones like Riven, Diana, and Yone. The problem with QS remains the same as the old one, where it has almost no value early game outside of a Yasuo Chosen, since avoiding those Nami bubbles is pretty cool. Chalice of Power remains a staple strong item after its recent buff to be essentially a Rabadons. They did buff Rabadons afterwards, but Chalice goes on 3 units and allows the wearer to cast their first spell faster as well. This item's value is extraordinary, and the main thing keeping it from the S tier is the meta itself having no AP carries. Yes, Talon, Ashe, and CO scale as AP as well, but not as much. Also, Yone, a premier unit in both comps, can't really benefit from it, since Exile is a thing. Wrapping up with the A tier is Sunfire Cape, which has been quietly becoming better and better itself. Its value as a win streak item remains in tip-top shape, and if you don't build a Morelo, you do need something to disrupt the healing. It's fairly good on Riven and Diana, as well as other frontliners like Shen, Sejuani, and the like. By the way, slamming it on an early 2-star or chosen Tahm Kench or Maokai is a pretty strong winning move. The main downside of this item are the components, which makes 2 extremely strong S tier items, ZZ Rot and Guardian's Angel, but oh well. That concludes our A tier. Do you think there's an item that should have been here? Let us know in the comments down below. Okay, we are moving on to the B tier. First one out of the gates is Ionic Spark. Outside of Riven, no one really uses this well, and there are better uses for its components, but it remains an extremely valuable item for her, allowing her to skyrocket her damage with 4 Dusk. Rabadons was just mentioned as a worse Chalice, but it did get buffed 2 patches in a row. It's fairly stronger now, but the 2-rod investment on an item like that, where no notable AP carries exist in the current meta, is quite improbable. However, should more AP carries pop up, the buffed Rabadons will be happy to make a comeback. Once again, Riven, Yone, Azir, Kayn, and Set use this item fairly well, outside of mages of course, like Ahri or Veigar, but you shouldn't really play those. Deathblade is tough really. You will never make it when you can make an IE or a GA. However, if you do get 4 BF swords or you get it at a late game carousel, the item is still strong. It's a really good item on Ashe because she scales so well with AD as well as Talon, though it does seem a little bit overkill on him. Jhin makes a really good use of it as well, one-shotting 2 units for the price of 1, since Sharpshooter enables them to stack it faster. Ginsu's Rageblade is not the best item on Ashe anymore, but it certainly tries. Kalista uses it well too, and surprisingly so does Yone, though you would never really slam one on him, unless it's your last item or something like that. This item is strong on Vayne, Azir, and Jinx as well, but there are more optimal items. Shojin has fallen off quite a bit since it's a nice to have item now, certainly not a must have one. It has a good pairing with Jinsu's or maybe Runins, but on its own, it has struggled to find a solid unit to attach itself to, especially after Jinx has fallen off the grid. It might be Aphelios' new toy if they ever fix him again. Titan's Resolve in the B tier is actually pretty impressive, almost always as the last resort item outside of Diana Moonlight comps. It still however has many good targets in the current meta, like Yasuo, Shinza, or any bruiser really, especially in an Elderwood comp where Lulu can buff you further. Blue buff is decent too. Many side carries use it fairly well, like Morgana and Lee Sin, and it's something to do if you get many tears. And I'm not talking about the ones that I cry every night. Depending on your comp, try to find the most impactful spell and give the blue buff to them, if their spell is relatively spammable. Fun fact, Yone with blue buff is almost insta-cast on his follow-up spell on the targets that he CCs, wrecking their faces faster than usual. With the continuous fall off of Zed, Akali, and their like, Rapid Fire Cannon has fallen off the grid as well. However, it's one of Yone's best in slot items, and Zed is still a good comp, so it gets a solid B. However, it's not a very versatile and definitely not a slammable item. Hextech Gunblade is pretty decent and it gets a solid B. It's mainly Diana who uses it extremely well, and that ups the rating. Also, Evelynn, Yone, and even Gunblade set can be pretty hilarious. Overall, an interesting item that you can find uses for. Being part of a really good strong comp, best in slot items, however, definitely gives it at least a B rating. That concludes our B tier, so let's go ahead and move on to the poor items who got a C, like me in high school. Gargoyle Stoneplate is pretty sad at the moment, though it's not terrible. It's decent on units like Shen or Sejuani, who often solo frontlines, but the way it works paired with the valuable components that it's made out of makes it a fairly awkward item. The assassin meta disregards this largely as well, so even worse for poor Gargoyle. Zephyr is nowhere close to the top, unlike how it was in set 3. Every item counts, so you'll be rarely seeing people make a Zephyr, especially with a Quicksilver still being fairly popular. At a late game carousel, the item is still valuable to take, but it's more of a tech rather than a strong item against carries without Quicksilver. Why would you make a Warmogs when you can make 2 ZZ Rods or Sunfire or Morelos, or you get the gist. Warmogs also does almost nothing against high AD carries like Ashe, Jhin, and Talon, who also often use a Giant Slayer, further killing this item and the person who has it. If it wasn't somewhat decent together with these items that boost other defensive stats, it might have gotten a D. Luden's Echo has fallen off hard. Nami is still a strong unit with it, but she often gets rolled over by other comps, so the item itself suffered with it, since it was the only use it got as a slammable item. The Bubble Trouble comp is pretty much the only thing saving it from the D tier. That doesn't mean that Yone with Ludens can't be pretty amazing though. Sounds like a lot of items are just good on Yone. Jeweled Gauntlet started the set on a high note. It's gotten hit the most out of all the AP items, however, since nobody has a spell that can crit on a unit that it matters, except maybe Set and Yone, but you can't really itemize with them in mind. If you do, the Gauntlet isn't bad at all on them, but the meta doesn't really favor it. Shroud of Stillness is such a cool item, but clumping is not really a thing in this meta, and even where it is, like Ashe, she has a short mana bar that essentially makes it as if it didn't happen. Shroud is cool if you got more than one, but that's either in the super late game or something where it happened and you have 2 gloves and a chain vest left over, which might I add, you did not make into Thief's Glove and Bramble. Bloodthirster was essentially Guardian's Angel replacement if you got a cloak instead of a chain vest, and so it continues to be, though arguably it would be better to make the cloak into a QS or even a Dragon's Claw if you could. Still, on Ashe or Talon it's not bad and can actually win you surprise rounds with huge healing out of nowhere. Finishing up with the C tier, Runaan's Hurricane is here. It's a very niche item, amazing for some units like Zed, maybe Diana, and definitely Kalista and Vayne, but they are all fringe units in the current meta except for Diana. Thus, it escapes the D tier, but by a hair's breadth. Wait, it's not done. We actually have a D tier, and we will have one from now on. To make the tier list more easy to organize for you guys, instead of lumping together a lot of things in the same tiers, as we can add more nuance to it now. And for our first item to ever be in our D tier list, we have Frozen Heart. It will probably stay in the D tier until Adept is out of the game. Especially now that Adept is meta, Frozen Heart is just about one of the worst items that you can make. The only fringe use would be on an assassin diving into the backline, and that's about it. Locket starting strong, but it got nerfed pretty quickly, and rightfully so. I mean, poor Keeper got buffed and it's still meh, and Locket was actually better than the whole trade. So now it's the same as Frozen Heart. If you want shields, play Keepers, don't make the Locket. Static Shift is terrible after its change. It does so little damage and there aren't many shields in the game and not actual great users for this item after its nerf. The poor Electric Dagger is back to the bottom of the ladder, waiting for the next Warwick to slip through the cracks. Trap Claw is also pretty sad right now as it does nothing to stop the big bads from killing the user. It's also made out of grade A components in the belt and glove, so the poor item never had a chance. It's decent against Yone, but that's about it. We are ending on Redemption, which used to be all the rage. But with Morelo being S tier, Sunfire being decent, and Zizura being OP, belt item slots are kind of taken at the moment. Right now, because the damage is too quick, the heal is not as impactful. If you want to take the top carries like Ashe and Talon into consideration, the damage is too quick to make the healing impactful. Redemption, unlike its World of Warcraft spell name, is not Resurrection. It's just a little heal. And we're done. We got all of them, right? But remember, if the situation calls for it, there's always a place for even the worst items. If you're playing Diana and losing to a Quicksilver-less Ashe, but cannot fit Adept, equipping one of your assassins with Frozen Heart might win you the game. So go out there and climb that ladder. As always, we love your feedback and continue to bear it in mind while we create our videos. Hit us in the comments with your thoughts about our ratings. We really like to interact with our audience and hear your opinions. With that all being said, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.